I thought my wife was just stressed from having our first baby, but when she started questioning who I loved more between her and my dad, I realized something much darker was happening in our marriage. For 4 months after our son was born, everything seemed normal, challenging but normal, the way everyone said it would be with a newborn. My wife and I were both exhausted, both learning, both trying to figure out this whole parenting thing together, and we'd been doing pretty well, or so I thought. We're both older siblings but had zero experience with babies, so every day felt like we were winging it, but we were winging it together, as a team. She'd been more irritable lately, snapping at little things, getting frustrated when the baby wouldn't sleep, but I figured that was just the sleep deprivation talking, the hormones, the massive life change we were both navigating. Last Tuesday night, we finally got a break. My dad offered to babysit so we could go on our first real date since the baby was born, and I was so excited to have some alone time with my wife, to remember who we were before we became mom and dad. I picked up my father, drove him over because he avoids driving at night these days, and we gave him simple instructions: put the baby down by 8, nothing complicated, just stick to the routine we'd been working so hard to establish. The date was perfect, we talked, we laughed, we held hands across the table like we used to, and for 2 hours I felt like we had our old life back, our connection restored. But when we got home, I found my dad sitting on the couch holding our sleeping baby, and immediately I could feel the tension shift in the room, my wife's body language changing beside me, her jaw tightening in that way it does when she's trying not to explode. My dad apologized right away, said he was sorry the baby wasn't in the crib but that he'd fussed every time he tried to put him down, so he just gave up and held him instead. And honestly, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Babies cry, sometimes you have to adapt. I took the baby to put him in the crib, and when I came back to the living room, my wife and my dad were having this intense whisper argument, their faces close together, her pointing her finger at him shaking his head defensively. I told my dad we should head back to his place, trying to diffuse whatever was happening, and during the car ride home he apologized again, said the baby was probably just anxious because we weren't the ones putting him down, that it had been a long time since he'd taken care of a baby and maybe he'd made some mistakes. I reassured him it was no big deal, that we appreciated him watching our son, that these things happen. And I meant it, I really did, because what was the alternative? Letting our baby scream in his crib for hours. When I got back home, my wife was pacing the living room, her arms crossed, and she immediately asked me what my dad had said about her, her voice sharp and accusatory in a way I'd never heard before. I told her the truth, that he hadn't said anything about her, just apologized and explained about the baby missing us. But she wasn't satisfied with that answer. She kept pushing, saying our son won't adjust to his sleep schedule unless we're consistent, and I agreed with her. I always agree with her about parenting decisions. Then she asked why I was taking his side over hers, and that's when I knew something was seriously wrong. Because I wasn't taking anyone's side, I was just trying to be understanding, trying to keep the peace after what had been such a beautiful evening together. I said I didn't want to let something minor ruin our great night, but she said it wasn't minor, that I was supposed to back her up, not gossip about her with my dad, and I was confused because I hadn't gossiped about anything. I'd literally just driven him home like we'd planned. She asked why I drove him home when she was clearly upset, why I didn't order a rideshare or a cab instead. And when I said the plan was always for me to drive him, she snapped that we had to stick with the almighty plan, her voice dripping with sarcasm I'd never heard from her before. I asked why she didn't just tell me she wanted me to do something different, and she asked if I would have if she'd asked, and honestly, I wasn't sure because of the cost and time delay. And when I said that, she said exactly, like she'd proven some point I didn't understand. Then came the question that changed everything, the question that made my blood run cold and my hands start shaking. She asked who I loved more, her or my dad, and I knew in that moment that this wasn't about babysitting or sleep schedules or driving arrangements. This was about something much deeper, something that had been building inside her that I'd completely missed. I said it was a crazy question and I wasn't going to answer it, but she said she needed to know, her eyes desperate and wild in a way that scared me. And when I said I don't rank people I love, that I love my wife as a wife and my dad as a dad, she called me an asshole for not choosing her. Now, 3 days later, she's barely speaking to me. She's questioning everything I do, every conversation I have, every decision I make, asking if I'm on her team or if I'm against her, and I'm starting to realize that this isn't about stress or hormones or new parent exhaustion. She never asked me stuff like this before, never questioned if we were on the same team, never made me feel like I had to choose between her and my family. And I'm terrified that having a baby has changed something fundamental between us, something I don't know how to fix. I keep replaying that night, wondering if I missed something. If there were signs I should have seen, if my wife is becoming someone I don't recognize, or if I'm the one who's been blind to who she really is, and either way, I'm scared of what this means for our marriage, for our family, for the future I thought we were building together. Here are some comments from the community and OP's responses. Comment 1, NTA. Is your wife always this insecure about your love for her? That's a crazy question, which you answered as well as you could, I think. But does she normally think you're not on her team? You sound. OP's response, she never asked me stuff like that before. And she never used to question if we were on the same team. She's been more irritable lately, but I figured that's normal. Our baby is 4 months, so I don't think it's weird she's lashing out a little bit. I guess my fear was that being understanding was verging towards being dismissive. Comment 2, NTA. When raising a kid, plans need to be adaptable. It's so sweet that your dad can and will watch your baby. She is being ungrateful, and maybe she is dealing with some after pregnancy emotions. Or may. OP's response, it's definitely not her regular personality. I think she's just stressed. Comment 3, wow, NTA. Is your child the firstborn, and are you two brand new parents? It sounds like your wife is trying to follow parenting guidelines but isn't realizing that babies don't participate in schedule. OP's response, yes, this is our first baby, and we're both older siblings, so no nibbling experience to rely on either.